So let's talk some Russell Wilson, Broncos country. There have been a lot of training camp reports coming out suggesting that Russell Wilson is really struggling to pick up Sean Payton's new offense, that he has had a lot of really bad plays, he's throwing interceptions, he's holding onto the ball too long, so on and so forth. Well, I've been out at training camp every single day. I can't speak for the perspective of other sports writers, sports pundits, sports analysts out there who cover the Denver Broncos. I can only speak to what I have seen out there. And I've got a bit of notes here that I have kind of condensed down from my main practice notes, just talking about some of the main observations that I have seen from Russell Wilson. And in this video, I want to break down if it is really as bad as some of the media outlets out there are portraying it as, especially some of the hot take artists that I've seen out there. I'm not going to name names, but I have seen some pretty outlandish takes out there. I want to break down just some of the plays that I have seen from Russell Wilson, positive and negative, and I want to talk about how this bodes for Russell Wilson moving into the regular season. And I also want to talk about how we as football fans have a bit of a tendency to overreact and sometimes panic way too early. Now, I want to start off by saying that I would be blowing smoke up your ass if I were to sit here right now and say that Russell Wilson has been perfect throughout the first 5 days of training camp. He has been far from perfect. He has had plenty of negative plays, or what a lot of people would portray as negative plays. We'll get into that in a second. He has thrown some interceptions, Broncos country. He has. On day one, he took an extra hitch and floated a ball into double coverage. It was a really bad throw into double coverage again. Justin Simmons tipped it, and Caden Stearns picked it off. Then day four, he stared down Cortland Sutton on a crossing route. It was a really, really bad decision. And Justin Simmons once again read it all the way, and he picked it off and took it what probably would have been to the house in a game situation. Then day five, today, Russell Wilson threw a pair of interceptions. The first one was a bit of a bad decision. He threw it into double coverage once again, this time to Brandon Johnson. However, based on the perspective that I saw the throw, Johnson still had an opportunity to catch it. It was a tight window throw that Russell Wilson was testing, and ultimately, the ball went right through Brandon Johnson's hands. And the general rule of thumb is if it goes through your hands, you need to come down with it. It ultimately landed in the hands of Justin Simmons, and it was going to be another pick six for him in a real game situation. He then had another pick today in the red zone. Now, I want full disclosure here. I did not see that particular play. The double horn, which normally signals the end of practice, blew early, and I ended up leaving camp at about 12 o'clock. Apparently, they had an extra red zone period right after that double horn blew, and I missed it. But based on secondhand reports from people who did see that pick, it was a bad throw from Russell Wilson, bad ball placement from Russell Wilson. He tried to once again squeeze it into a tight window, but it was more so a good defensive play from K'Wan Williams to undercut it and pick it off. So it was 50% a bad throw from Russell Wilson, but also 50% just a really good play from K'Wan Williams. So yes, Russell Wilson has definitely thrown some interceptions in practice. However, I don't necessarily think that that is all doom and gloom like the media wants to portray it out to be. First of all, Russell Wilson, interceptions weren't really the problem for Russell Wilson last year. He only threw 11 on the season. We just want him to have a higher touchdown ratio to balance it out. Touchdown interception ratio, in my opinion, is one of the worst ways to evaluate quarterback play, but that's a completely different tangent for a different day. However, again, interceptions were not the problem for Russell Wilson last year, and I want to bring in this Twitter thread here that kind of explains why practice interceptions aren't as bad as, say, game interceptions, and why we as football fans shouldn't put them on the same pedestal as we do an interception in a game situation. So this tweet thread here starts with Honest NFL, who is a great follow on Twitter. I would definitely recommend checking him out. You learn a lot about the game of football, a lot about X's and O's by following him. He says, "It probably sounds counterproductive, but I actually love when quarterbacks throw interceptions in any practice scenario. Testing your boundaries is one of the main parts of development, and there's such prime learning experiences for the player if it's done constructively in the position room." That's the part that I want you guys to pay attention to here. Is they are such prime learning experiences for the player if done constructively in the position room. I feel like last season, whenever Russell Wilson would make a boneheaded throw or throw an interception or something along those lines, he wouldn't have the proper coaching showing him fundamentally what he did wrong and how to correct it. I imagine that Nathaniel Hackett, Clint Kubiak, and company were not able to relay that information to Russell Wilson in a way that makes sense and is conducive for him to learn how not to make that mistake again. Sean Payton is one of the best teachers in the NFL, and he surrounds his coaching staff with good teachers as well. So you know that if Russell Wilson does make a mistake, such as throwing an interception in a practice situation, then the coaching will be there all the way to help him see exactly what fundamentally went wrong for him in hopes of him not making that same mistake again. I don't think I've seen Russell Wilson make the same fundamental mistake twice. I've seen him do negative things more than once, but I don't think I've seen him make the same exact fundamental mistake twice, and that's a big change from last season's coaching staff. So adding on to this Twitter thread is Tony Rasiopian. He says, "In practice situations, you learn what's open and not open for you. You learn if you can be a count early with air or on time and a count late and make up your ball location with velocity. You can basically learn the timing and the hitching of your throws. That's very important in delivering the ball on time with accuracy. You can also see what concepts need what tempo and trajectory and married with your eyes and footwork." So overall, it's just a way for you to test what timing you need on certain throws, what hitching you need to take on certain throws. It's very much the practice lab. It allows you to see what you can and can't get away with in a game situation. Honest NFL continues here. "I'm not sure a lot of people realize that practice scripts are designed for a reason, and a lot of times it's minuscule detail like whether it's feasible to get the quarterback's eyes from one route to the next, or whether the quarterback needs to hitch to sync up with the speed of new routes." So essentially, does the quarterback need to just hang in the pocket, or do they need to take an extra hitch in their drop in order to time up their drop with when the receiver is going to come open in the route? That is what Russell Wilson is learning right now, and that is one reason why we see him throwing all of these practice interceptions, and why it's not necessarily a bad thing. He's learning what footwork times up with what route, so on and so forth, and that's a process that takes time. Remember, this is a completely new offense for Russell Wilson. This is the Sean Payton offense. This is not the Russell Wilson offense. The terminology is different. The route timing is different. Everything is different here. He's got to learn new route concepts. Again, it's just like learning a new language, basically, for Russell Wilson. Those processes take time, and you're going to have growing pains. You're going to have good plays, and we have seen plenty of good plays. And you're also going to have bad plays, and we've seen plenty of those as well. Now, for me, it's not the interceptions so much for Russell Wilson that are negative plays. It's more so him being more indecisive about when to throw the ball. He has become really, really late getting to his check down. You want quarterbacks to get to their check down, but not way too late where the running back or whoever your check down is going to get blasted or tackled in the backfield or whatever the case situation is. You want the timing in the route to be lined up again, and if it's not there, you want to get to your check down in a timely, efficient manner. I remember Teddy Bridgewater said one time he used to click a pin whenever he would watch film to try to get to his next progression, and he would hear that pin click in his head whenever he would drop back in a game situation. And he would hear, okay, click 1, this read's not open. Click 2, this read's not open. Click 3, this read's not open. Okay, by click 4, I need to get to my check down. Russ isn't getting to his check down until click 5 or click 6, and that is way too late. Some other negative things I feel like we're seeing from Russell Wilson is that he is staring down receivers a lot. That means that he's not familiar yet with what space in the field that receivers are going to be. And he's also not familiar with certain matchups in man coverage. That's a mental error for Russell Wilson, and I'm hoping that's one that gets cleaned up as he gets more familiar again with this offense. And that's not something we may see until week 4, week 5 of the regular season, when actual real life bullets are flying. And that's frustrating as fans of football who want instant, immediate success for this team, but it does take time. We will remember when Tom Brady went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it took him a lot of time to get comfortable and familiar with the new offense that they were running down there. It was a completely different offense from what he had played in for basically his entire career. And it's the same thing here with Russell Wilson. There are going to be those same struggles and growing pains, but there are also instances where he's not helping the cause either. He leaves clean pockets way too early sometimes. He scrambles after holding on to the ball too long, and in real live game situations, those probably would have been sacks. We want to see him scramble with a little bit more authority. But one positive thing that we have definitely seen out of Russell Wilson, the deep ball is still there all the way. He moves very well still, especially outside the pocket, so he's still able to launch up those moon balls that we're used to him seeing. The downfield accuracy for me looks a lot better than it did last year, so that is a big positive. But overall, there is still plenty to be desired from Russell Wilson. The interceptions, though, are not necessarily negative plays for me. I want to see Russell Wilson test what he can and can't get away with in practice. The negative plays for me are the bad ball placement, the scrambling from clean pockets, the late scrambling, the indecisiveness, the holding on to the ball too long, getting your check down late. Those for me are the more negative plays that stand out as opposed to just his interceptions on paper. Now, I want to talk about, again, sort of the panic mode that we as football fans want to go into when the results aren't instantly there, especially for a player like Russell Wilson, who's going to be under a much tighter microscope this year after the disastrous season that he had last year. Now, some of those were factors that were out of his control, and some of those were due to factors that were in his control. This year, though, it's going to be, again, a much bigger microscope that Russell Wilson is going to be under, and if he makes a mistake, that mistake is going to be noticed, and it's going to be retweeted out there way more often than it would have, say, last season when he had a bad play. But again, a lot of this is just a product of Russell Wilson learning a new offense. It's not necessarily a product of Russell Wilson being washed. There are some concerning signs there. I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your ass and say that Russell Wilson has been perfect or even say that he has been good this training camp. But I also want to sit here and say, what better results did you expect? Russell Wilson is learning a completely different offense with different route concepts. It is far from the offense that he ran in Seattle for all those years, and it's far different from the offense that he ran in Denver last year under Nathaniel Hackett. These things take time to develop. They take time to come together, and we as fans need to have a little bit of patience here. If we're sitting here by week 4 of the regular season and Russell Wilson is still having these same issues, then it's time to hit the panic button, and maybe it's time to draw the conclusion that, okay, maybe Russell Wilson is in fact washed. But if Russell Wilson is in fact washed, the Denver Broncos are screwed, and that's because their contingency plan that they brought in the event that Russell Wilson is indeed washed Jarrett Stidham is booty cheeks, guys. Jarrett Stidham is not looking like an NFL caliber quarterback in training camp. He moves around well, but the arm talent just is not there with him. The decision making has been shaky. He's had more negative plays than Russell Wilson has in training camp. Reports out there about Jarrett Stidham playing better than Russell Wilson are simply not true. Russell Wilson clearly is the most talented quarterback that the Denver Broncos have, and if Russell Wilson does not play well, the Denver Broncos are screwed. And if Russell Wilson gets injured, the Denver Broncos are screwed because Jarrett Stidham is in no way, shape, or form the savior of this franchise. All right, Broncos country, I hope this perspective sort of gives you guys a little bit of insight into how Russell Wilson is really performing in training camp and why I feel like we as fans need to hold off a little bit before we hit the panic button. But I'm curious, guys, are you guys hitting the panic button yet? Or are you guys going to be a little bit more patient in Russell Wilson's growth and development in the Sean Payton offense? Drop your comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate, guys. Those are two free and easy ways to show your support. As I always say, it helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, this has been another episode of Denver Broncos Syndicate. I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.